record. Hello and a big welcome to all of you out there who are listening and seeing this podcast. And today we have a guest from the other side of the world, from Australia, Queensland. And welcome to you, Tam Wemyss. Did I say it right?
Not quite. It's Weems, but close
Wemyss.
enough. That's all
Okay.
good.
Yeah. Welcome to you. So nice to have you here.
Thank
And
you. Glad to be here.
and please tell us about you. You have something special. Uh, and yeah, tell us about
Yeah,
your
okay.
life.
Okay. So I started a business. I was a school principal for 13 years and got quite burnt out. So did a master's in guidance and counselling to become a guidance counsellor in a high school. And from that, decided I wanted to branch out a little bit and work for myself. So started a counselling business. And because I've got horses and have been involved with horses most of my life, equine therapy seemed to be a natural progression. So sort of pushed into the equine therapy area. As part of that, my husband and I both compete as well. So we did spend quite a bit of time helping people at different events with problems with their horses. Got asked to teach a couple of kids to ride. And from there, that side of the business just exploded. So we're now teaching riding lessons 6 days a week. We've got over 80 riders. We've got from 4-year-olds to 60-year-olds riding with us. So yes, it was
Wow.
almost an accidental business.
That's fantastic. Do you have your own horses, or are people coming with their horses to learn?
So we do a combination. Most people come to us with and use our horses. We're very lucky. We've put a lot of training into our horses so that we've got horses that a 5-year-old can ride in the arena on Friday afternoon, and then we can take him to a comp on Saturday and win the competition with him. So all our horses, that's our aim with them, is to have them where they adapt for their rider and have that right temperament. So when we started about 12 months ago, we arrived back in Far North Queensland with 2 horses, added one, got another one who's a nice big warm blood. I haven't actually broken him in yet. I'm waiting for him to grow a bit. But now we have 9 horses and 2 ponies in 12 months because the business has just grown. So at the moment, not a lot of people bringing their own horses, simply because we've been told our horses are so good. And in all honesty, a lot of the people that come to us because they're having problems with their horses or something's not quite working for them in their riding. We work with a lot of people that lack confidence as well. So that's been a natural progression for me. I had an accident on a horse about 7 or 8 years ago now. Nothing major, quite minor injuries, but it absolutely shattered my confidence. I was in my 40s, and I actually didn't think I would ride again. And so having to go through that rebuilding of my confidence to where I'm back competing, I think I'm able to get people through that. And then when I add the counselling skill set I have as well, I think that's a nice little package that they get that we can work on, and I can work them through that fear that they have and actually get them on their way and improving, because we also, our riding school is not just a riding school. We like to take a whole approach. So people learn to care for the horses. They have to learn, we're very big on groundwork, how to manage a horse on the ground. So they have to do that as well. It's not you turn up, the horse is saddled, and off you're in the arena. Some of our older riders in particular, when they turn up, it's their responsibility to catch their horse they're going to ride and saddle that horse and check that that horse is ready to be ridden before they get on.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just a completely accidental business.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. But when you have been there yourself, you have much more empathy, and you can help the people who are afraid. It was the same for me. Before I was afraid, I always were like that, that people who are afraid of horses shouldn't have a horse. But when you have been through it yourself, and you know what the feelings are and how you are thinking and all that, that's a great thing to have to give to others.
it is, and it's, unless you've been through it yourself, like I know, after my accident, the older man who was actually doing some work with the horse that I had the accident on, he rang me up and, he said, get down here and get back on this horse. And I was an absolute wreck. I was like, I don't want to ride this horse. So I actually went down there. I did get back on the horse and I rode it round for, 10, 15 minutes. And I was very tight, as you do tend to be. And I got off the horse and I said to him, this is not the horse for me. And he said, that is the exact decision you needed to make. And that was the reason he made me get back on the horse, was he wanted me to get back on and come to the realization for myself that at the time, my skill set wasn't what that horse needed. The horse was actually very mentally damaged prior to coming to me. And that sort of started me on that journey of learning that there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way to interact with horses. And I was very lucky that this man, Graham Ward is his name. He's based in Rockhampton. He's in his 80s, and he spent 6 months in the United States in the 80s, and he got to work with people like Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt and Lee Rabor. So he was a man before his time. He was about the horse. He had a better way of doing it back then, and he's carried that through and tried to influence as many people. So, for my husband, it's been a huge learning journey for him as well, because, he was a ringer on a station. He was a bronc rider in rodeos. And for him, it was, you just rode the buck out of the horse, whereas now, especially as an older rider in his, 50s, almost 60, he's had to come to the realization that it had to be different, not just because it's better for the horse, but it keeps you safer as well. And that it doesn't have to be that rough and tumble kind of way. It can be about the horse being relaxed and the horse wanting to be with you rather than not. So for him, that was a huge, huge change, because he actually picked up a mare who had been horrifically abused. And he's a very energetic person. He has this big energy about him, and he was too much for her. So she would literally see him coming and she'd be like, oh gosh, and she'd be gone. And then, whereas I have a tendency to make horses come down because I have that lower energy. So that's where, being made aware of our energy levels, I've been able to transfer that into the equine therapy, because the kids that have that really low energy, I put them with my higher energy horses and vice versa. And then sometimes I'll change it up and swap them around. And they're always really stunned at the difference in a horse. Even with riders, you put a low energy rider on a horse that's not very energetic, and they don't tend to get a lot of success with that horse. But then I put a higher energy rider on that low energy horse, and they've got the horse doing all sorts of amazing things. And I think too that it's helped a few riders that I've had come in who were very much in that mindset of it's always the horse's fault. It's the horse. This is not a good horse. I don't have a good horse.
Oh, they are
And it's
lazy, and yeah.
yes, and I had that mindset. That was me.
Yeah.
My gelding, I had that negative. He's lazy. You've got to argue every step with him. He's and you know, I bought him as a 2-year-old in a sale, in a horse sale. Put lots of time and effort into him, and then reached that point of I can't do anything with this horse. Sent him to a lady I knew who was really good and said, look, can you just teach him things? Obviously, I can't do this. And she rang me 2 hours later and she says, what do you want me to teach this horse? I've just taken him out and he's cut a cow from the mob, and he did a perfect rollback, and he stops beautifully, and he's side passing, and he's got an extended trot. What do you want me to do with him? Because he's got it all there. And I had to come back and go, it's me. It's not the horse. It was actually my mindset towards him because I had battled with him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really interesting to see how people interact differently with our horses.
And also how you maybe have seen the negative things where she is seeing the positive things. That is also when you can change that in your mind.
Yes, and I have a lease horse at the moment that a lady sent to me. The horse scared her. The horse actually doesn't do anything. The worst thing this horse does is when she gets nervous, she jig jogs. That's pretty well. And that's just harnessing that energy into something more positive. So she sent her to me for work. She was definitely overfed as well. So knocked the feedback, put her into work. It's probably 90% of the horses that we help people with, overfed and underworked. And this horse came to me and she said, and she's a beautiful, not sure if you know the breed Cleveland Bays.
Yeah.
So she's a beautiful Cleveland Bay. We've only got about 90 of them left in Australia. And she's just this nice, big, chunky, the smoothest horse I have ever ridden. And her owner says to me, oh, she knows nothing, but you'll really have to put a lot of training into her. And I was able to ring her 2 days later and say, this horse that doesn't know anything, I had a 14-year-old doing canter leg yields on her today. Then I got on her and I was just mucking around doing some stuff, and we were talking about, because we do a lot of Western riding, talking about getting a horse to spin. And I was showing them the cues on this horse. And I've said, but Flo won't be able to do it because she doesn't know what I'm asking her yet. And this horse started spinning. And I've just stopped and went, oh, my gosh. And I've had to ring her owner back and say, this horse actually has lots and lots of buttons. You're just not aware of how to get those buttons working at this point. And it's just... It's the same for a lot, and it was the same thing I had for my gelding. He had the buttons. I had taught him the buttons, but I had got to a frustration level with him, and it was only my coach. My coach who lives in Rockhampton, he was an eventer. That's what he liked to do, and he actually said to me, I think you've outgrown this horse. He was really good for you building your confidence back because he was very quiet, and he said, but now you're demanding more of him because you're ready to step up and he actually doesn't have the capability to step up to what you need. And that's why you're frustrated, and that's why you're thinking he's not any good. So that was a big realization, to then sit back and go, once again, it's me, it's not the horse. So that's the biggest battle, is getting those people who come to us, particularly with their horses they're struggling with, that it's probably not your horse. You know, once we eliminate all the obvious, is he ill? Is he in pain? All that kind of thing. Has he had bad training? Often, and we say it to people a lot, people don't have horse problems, horses have people problems.
Yeah.
And usually you find if a horse has got something happening, it's because we've taught him that way. We've taught him how to be. And, you know, one thing that Graham Ward always said to me was, always remember that we drag that horse into our world. That's not right. The other way round.
No.
You know, he said he wants to be happy with his mates out in the bush, running around, you know. We went and put him in a paddock.
Yeah.
And then we asked him to do things a certain way, and we asked him to eat things that he wouldn't normally have eaten. He said, and then we wonder why we have problems. He said, we've just got to make sure that the horse is the number one for us, and that we don't always blame the horse. Yes, there are horses that can be problematic, but it's a problem that we as people have created.
Yeah, that's often like that. That's a great thing, and I think that is needed. You were talking about your husband were in rodeo and bucked the horses off and all that. I've seen that in Australia, and I think that the whole world needs another thinking around horses. And
most definitely, and it's that whole you know, you see it a lot, people who they get it into their head. We over in here in Australia, I'm not sure how it is in Europe at the moment, but there's we call it the middle-aged woman phenomenon. So what happens is a middle-aged woman says, I've always wanted a horse. I know.
Okay.
I'll get an off-the-track thoroughbred, so an ex-race horse, because over here they give them away.
Yeah.
I get 10 phone calls a week from racehorse trainers. Hey, I got one here. Do you want to take him? They give them away. And they have this sense of, we will learn together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it usually winds up with the horse, somebody hurt, the horse gets the blame, the horse gets moved on. And then he gets moved on, and then he winds up at what we call the dogger. So he winds up going for pet food. So we have a lovely thoroughbred here who a woman took off the track. She was selling him quite cheaply, $500. I went and had a look at him. I'd actually injured my back, and a friend who rides reasonably well, but not by any means an experienced rider, offered to ride him. He was very, very quiet. I went, okay, he'll be okay. Got him home, and we suspect he had been sedated when we went and looked at him. We also have found out since that he was declared dangerous, and a vet actually told her to put him down. He was that dangerous. That horse now, I have an 11-year-old girl who rides him, and he's known as the gentleman in the paddock. And simply, look, we did really simple things with him. So he would have a bit of a buck, not much of a buck. If you could if you can sit reasonably well on a horse, he couldn't get you off. His biggest vice was he was very food aggressive. So I actually have a scar on my arm from him where he came at me when I had a feed bucket.
Wow.
So we had to work with him on getting him out of our space and being respectful. Now you can walk up and pat him while he's there. He still doesn't like other horses near his feed, but
No.
that's a whole thing. And then his other dangerous habit was rearing. So he would stand straight up on his back legs as soon as you asked him to go somewhere he didn't want to go. So what we did was we actually just put him in the paddock for 9 months and we just let him be a horse. So we fed him predominantly a diet of hay and the occasional cooked grain pellets that we get shipped up from Rockhampton. Let him be in the paddock for 9 months, then said, okay, we need to bring him in. Brought him back into work. He started to do a couple of the little behaviours and it was basically just correcting him. And my kids are quite funny in the riding school. They know that, like if they're having trouble getting a horse going forward, I'll say, would you like a whip? And they say, yes, whips are to encourage, not to punish. And they, the kids are going tap, tap, and they, they'll say to me, oh, am I hitting him too hard? Is that a punishment hit or is that an encouragement tap? And yeah, he just needed that little bit of encouragement to get him forward. Lots of figure eights. We did miles and miles of figure eights, getting him to just break the habit more than anything. And like I said, now he is one of my 11-year-old girls rides him. And unfortunately, the middle-aged woman phenomenon, that doesn't become the normal result for those off-the-track thoroughbreds. It's, as I said, they wind up in the dogger pens. So one of our things we would like to expand the business into is where we do take those horses and re-educate them correctly and then sell them on for people who are looking for that kind of horse. But our aim is that it'll be like a contract of sale, and we will also vet the owners. So, if I have someone come in and say, oh, yes, I've always wanted a horse. Okay, how many hours of riding have you had? Do you have someone who regularly works with you with your horses? So like I still do lessons. I still go to Rockhampton once a year for a week or two and spend that time with my coach. And people say, but you're teaching people. Why are you having lessons? I say, one, it keeps myself polished as well. And two, there's always something new to learn. That's why I still go to clinics. You don't know it all. And I think if you reach a point with horses where you think you know it all, you need to sell the horses and walk out the gate.
Yeah, that's right. The more you know, the more you see that you don't know it all.
That's right. And I know Graham Ward, he was a really huge encourager of learning from different people. And he said to me, you might go and take what that person taught you, and he says, put it in your pocket. He said, you mightn't use it. And then one day you get that horse and you're thinking, oh, this isn't working. Hang on, that guy talked about doing it this way. He said, and you pull that out of your pocket and you use it.
Yes.
And I think that we get too hung up on this is the way it is, rather than looking for the better way. But no, I think a lot of horses pay the price for, I guess, people's lack of knowledge.
Yes.
And I know for myself, until I connected with Wardy, I was very lucky as a younger rider. My cousin owned all the horses. I never paid a cent. My parents never paid a cent. And I got to ride very well trained, very well-bred horses that had all the buttons. And then I picked up this 2-year-old, ugliest gelding that you've ever seen in your life, who knew nothing and liked to bolt. That was entertaining for a while, after having an accident. And, you know, it was a huge, huge learning curve. I had to really get help from lots and lots of people and come to the realization of, bugger, yeah, I ride pretty well from what people say, but man, I know nothing about educating a horse. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and as you said, people want to do good things. I'm sure the lady thought that she was doing a good thing, helping the horse get to her. But when you don't have the knowledge, it will only get worse.
Yeah, and unfortunately, her next 2 horses all have the same similar behaviours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it was about, I needed to learn to be better. I needed to learn how to do things differently. The old rough and tumble ways of starting horses and training horses it doesn't create a good relationship with the horse either.
No.
And unfortunately, there's lots and lots of people who buy horses and they're stuck in that I know what I know, and don't realize that when their horse starts to have a behavioral problem, that they've probably taught the horse that behavior. Whether it's through not correcting it or through how you do things. But yep, horses have people problems. That's what it comes down to.
And you were also talking about some of the students. They get paid for riding. Will you tell us a little more about that?
So the students who get paid for their riding.
No, they are riding. You talked about some funds or something.
Oh, some competitions.
Yes.
Yes. So we had a club in Australia here who actually did an online competition. So what you do is you film your test and you send it off to be judged. So I had, it was actually a lady I had done cowboy dressage with, who's a member of the club, who sent it to me and said, oh, did you want to have a go at this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it, because I miss, at the moment, the only competition up in far north Queensland is barrel racing, and there's cutting and camp drafting stuff. But I loved cowboy dressage when I was in Rockhampton, and just the ranch, the reining, the patterns, that kind of thing. So I mentioned it to, we have a sponsored rider, young Poppy. I mentioned it to Poppy and said, you know, would you like to do a couple of tests? And then a couple of other kids heard she was doing it. And so we wound up with about 8 of our riders wanting to do the competition. So they were ranch patterns, reining patterns, stock horse patterns. That's a big thing here in Australia. So we entered our kids. One of our girls had only had 8 lessons when she entered. So, and we got our results back a couple of weeks ago, and all of our riders placed first, second, or third in every event that they entered. Even our Littly, we have a little one, she's 6, and she placed third, and she actually competed in the youth. So the youth competition is basically kids from 18 down, and she took a 3rd place in one of her rides. So
6 years old.
Yeah, and we
Wow.
were absolutely stoked. We were so excited. And it was so fun. It was so stressful doing it, but getting the filming right and making sure it was all okay. And in the whole of doing it all, when I uploaded all the videos, like the night it was due, I'm uploading all these videos for the judge. And I sat back and went, oh, I didn't actually nominate myself or do any for myself because I was just pushing my kids through.
Yeah.
But it was just and lots of lovely feedback from the judge. And I think that it's the way we do things. We don't rush our kids. So we've got kids who've been riding with us for 3 or 4 months who aren't cantering yet because they're not ready for it.
No.
And I know a lot of riding schools, you know, it's almost the parents are paying good money for the kid to learn to ride. So you've got to show some sort of progress. But we're very upfront from the start that it's a whole rider. So you're going to have days where you might spend 15, 20 minutes doing groundwork. You're going to learn to saddle the horse. You're going to have good balance and a good seat and good hands before we step up the pace. Because as I say to parents, that's where kids walk away from the sport because they're not ready for something. They're pushed towards it. They fall and they walk away. And that's not what we want. So most of our kids did the walk trot tests. A couple of the other girls who were a bit further along did the walk trot canter. But as a couple of bush coaches, as we call ourselves, we were really wrapped in how well our kids did. So we're planning on a barbecue Friday night thing. They're posting the ribbons up, so we'll do a little presentation. And there's 2 more rounds to the series. So everyone just finished nominating today. So we're just coming into our school holidays here next week. So the second week of the school holidays, all the kids will come together a couple of afternoons a week for some extra riding and training and practicing their patterns. And then we'll get those filmed and uploaded, and hopefully they do just as well in the second and third round.
How do you keep your horses? I know when I was in Australia, they didn't have any stable. They had the horses outside. Do you have a stable or how is it?
No, so our horses are out in the paddock.
Yeah.
They're separated, of course. We have separated the herd a bit, but we have shelters in the paddock so they can get away from, you know, the heat and the. We've had an absolutely atrocious monsoonal season this year because we're right on the coast. My paddock is probably maybe 200 metres from the beach. So we're right on the coast. So we started the end of our season with a cyclone. That wasn't a very severe cyclone, but there was another low that held the cyclone. So we had 6 days of what we call biblical rain. It didn't stop. We were getting anywhere from 600 to 800 mils a day some days of rain.
Wow.
It was absolutely relentless. So we had lots of people lost stock up here. Lots of people. We had people that were evacuated off the roofs of their houses with their kids and their dogs. We had friends' houses went underwater. Where we are, we were okay. We got flooded. The main road into town sort of flooded. But our house, which sits just up from our paddock up the road, because we lease our paddock for our riding school, we're the lowest yard in sort of the block. So everybody's water came into our yard, and we had one night where it was lapping the steps. So we made the choice to evacuate. So we threw the dogs in and went down the paddock. We have what's called a gooseneck trailer. So that's where you've got your bed and your living in the front and then your horses in the back.
Yeah.
So we went, okay, we'll evacuate down to the gooseneck. Got down there, got settled, and then I woke up at some ungodly hour of the morning to a leak. So the mattress was wet. So the biblical rain was still happening at that stage. And then in the middle of that, the whole gooseneck started shaking, and you have to laugh. The whole thing's shaking, and all I could think was, oh my God, has that cyclone come back and I didn't notice? Or, because we had no power or water by that stage. No, I have a massive warm blood who's nearly 17 hands as a 4-year-old, who decided scratching himself on the side of it at 3 a.m. in the morning was great. Unfortunately, that set the dogs off barking, who we had in the horse area. So then him being a curious 4-year-old wandered up and stuck his nose up to the window to see, oh, what's that barking? So then the dogs are barking and he's got his nose. My husband's got his head out the window yelling him, telling him to get away. And it was, you had to laugh or you would have cried. But unfortunately, the rain just, we've not had many sunny days. So our paddocks really are a big muddy mess. We've had horses who have quite severe rain scald. So that's from a bacteria in the rain. And then one horse got sick. He actually went down on me Christmas Day. I managed to get him back up and get him in the yard and rang a vet. Our vet, who lives an hour away, has been absolutely amazing. Big shout out to Sundance Vets, who are based in Mareeba. They came down, checked him out, gave me some medication, never charged me a call out or a travel fee. They were absolutely brilliant. But unfortunately, because the rain hasn't let up, two of our other horses, one who's an off the track who we picked up just before the cyclone, and he was quite thin to begin with, he lost a phenomenal amount of weight and his immune system is not doing too well. And then another horse we picked up after the cyclone, his owner was not planning to keep him. They thought he was Aurora. I don't know if you guys have heard of that over there. So Aurora is the flap in their throat doesn't open correctly. They make that horrible noise.
Yeah, that's right.
So he said, look, I'm not paying the money for a surgery. I'm going to put this horse down. And I said, well, hang on. He can be a therapy horse. I don't have to have ridden horses. He can be used for therapy. And I was actually happy to pay for the surgery because he's an amazing horse. He's been really well trained. But unfortunately, that's not what he got. He's actually got a condition called anhydrosis, which means he doesn't sweat. Okay. So in England, he would live quite happily. In far north Queensland, where it's 38 degrees and 92% humidity, he was really struggling. So recently the vet came out and he actually has his liver isn't functioning correctly, which they think they're not sure if the liver function is from the weather, the extreme weather, and that's what's caused him to stop sweating, or he stopped sweating and that's caused his liver to have to work harder. So at the moment we're spending lots and lots of money on vet bills and medication and feed to pick them up. And today I took his rug off to give him another bath and put some more cream on his rain scald, and he actually looks better and he's not puffing as hard. So I'm hoping maybe he's on the road to recovery. But we've had dogs with rain scald here, and the vet is looking at them saying, I've never seen a dog with rain scald. No. It's just been, and even up until yesterday, it didn't rain today. It was still raining up until yesterday, and we were getting anywhere from 60 mil to 200 in a day. So it's been an absolute nightmare to have to manage.
Mm.
You know, and that's where having stables would have been nice. Could have
Yeah.
just locked them all up, but that
Mm.
then creates other problems. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, a couple of them now have stress-induced ulcers. So we're doing the ulcer treatments, and those people listening who would have had horses with ulcers know that, you know, that's another battle to get them through, to get them well again, and they're not, certainly not going to put on weight while those ulcers are still impacting them. And of course, because of the rain, the hay farmers here haven't been able to cut the hay, so hay
No.
is starting to get difficult to get,
Yeah.
because we have high oxalate grasses here. So it's not, you know, the paddocks look lovely and green and lush, but the grass is actually not good for them to be eating. So we
No.
always supplement with hay and a mineral mix. But when the hay farmers can't cut, it just exasperates it. So
Mm.
it's been a hard. So that cyclone rolled through the first week of December. And what are we now? We're almost in the last week of March. So we've been battling all this stuff. And then, you know, the cancelled lessons, which then impacts the
Yeah.
costs of looking after the horses. And, you know, when
Yes.
you get the vet out, and the vet bill turns into $3,000 very quickly in one visit. And yeah, so it's been a struggle for a lot of people with horses up here at the moment, not just us as a riding school, but everyone's struggling to keep their horses well, so that, you know, we can all come out the other side. And, you know, competitions start on the 13th of April, and there's a lot of people saying, oh, my horses are just not well enough to
Wow.
even be considering bringing them back into work, let alone taking them to a competition. So, and it's really funny because some horses are absolutely not impacted at all.
No.
We've got a couple there that you wouldn't think that there'd been anything happening, and then yet a couple of the ones that are generally my really hardy horses, because they picked up a virus during the cyclone, who knows what it was, it's just been an uphill battle for them. So, but they do today. Some of them are starting to look better and look like they're putting on weight. But yeah, it's been a lot of hard work, and because my husband actually, he works away for the 4 days of the week, so pretty well doing it on my own. Just very, very lucky that I have parents of my riding school kids, and I have riding school kids who come and help. They'll, you know, they know the feed regime now. They can tell you what goes in every bucket. I was just away for a weekend, and my husband was home looking after the horses, and a couple of times he'd message me or ring and say, oh, who has this toxin binder, or who has this? And I said to him, just if you can't figure it out, just ring Poppy and tell Poppy to come over. And Poppy's our sponsored rider, and she knows who gets what and who gets how much. And because we certainly wouldn't have survived without all of those parents and the kids coming to help. Because it's just been an awful wet season for us. Yeah, which, like, wet season is wet season, but this one's just been, like I said, the 6 days of biblical rain. We literally got our whole wet season in 6 days, and then we've had an overabundance of wet season on top.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I really hope it dries up now and it's get better.
I hope so, because I'm sick of walking around in gumboots. I want to put my riding boots back on.
Yeah, I understand. But time is running, and if people wants to get in touch with you, how can they find you? Do you have anything on Facebook or
Yeah,
a
so we have
website?
two pages on Facebook. So our equine therapy page is called Breaking Free, and our riding school page is called One Vision Equestrian. We came up with One Vision because we wanted to, I guess, put out there that for us, with our riders, we have one vision, and that's to create a better world for horses. So we want, that to be the one vision, not my vision, your vision. We want it to be one, so that we want a better world for horses. And we also have a One Vision Equestrian TikTok. So the kids are very good at, and their parents are very good at letting us film them and make little TikToks.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we are looking at expanding into the tourist arena. With we're not interested in the big group trail riding kind of stuff. We're looking at more boutique-y. So we do couples where we work with them a little bit with the horses, then we take them for a trail ride. We go through the cane headlands, through the mangroves, up along the river. There's a lovely little crocodile who likes to sun himself sometimes. We've got to wait for him to move on before we keep going. We can wander down the beach.
Yeah.
And it's just great because you get to see so much of the wildlife up here, which is amazing. So yeah, we do the couples, we do groups of 4. We've started branching into a bit of a family package where the kids get to stay behind and do games and things with the horses, and mum and dad get to have a break and go out for a ride. So we're just deciding, we're just working on that at the moment. But it seems a natural progression, living 20 minutes from Port Douglas.
Yeah.
And so many of the resorts, and lots of my parents work in the resorts, and so many tourists ask them about, horse riding kinds of stuff. But for us, the big group thing wasn't what we wanted.
No.
So we've made it much more exclusive. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, it was so nice to hear about. That was a lot of things, and I wish you a big luck with this one, and I hope it dries up. So thank you so much for coming today. It was really nice to hear about Australian again.
No, thank
So
you for having me. We love to share what we do. And
yeah,
just remember, it's about your horse. It's not about you. It's never about you. It's about your horse.
that's right. That's right. Good words. So, thank you very much for you out there who have been listening to this. And please subscribe here. And if you want to, you are very welcome in our membership group, Happy Horse Hub. And the link would be in the comments. So, thank you so much for today, and see you again next Sunday. Thank you for coming.